Hi, I'm Sonali Verma, your design faculty for our 61 days course for UCEED examination, in which we are going to cover 100% syllabus for Part A as well as Part B. Part B will be taken by me from lectures 1 to 35, and Part A will be taken by our esteemed faculties, which will be lecture 36 to 61. Okay, so for today's lecture, we are at day 10, which is perspective 1 point and 2 point. Okay, so before starting with this lecture, I would like to say this. Please do check out all the videos of our basic techniques of sketching, which is your first division of basic techniques in our curriculum for Part B. Okay, I am saying this because we have to make sure of using all the tools we learn here, okay, like one by one, starting from introduction to sketching, in order to improve your line quality, right? We have discussed about our observational factors as well, okay, where we have to observe a certain things in order to create a proper perspective view or proper scenery creation, right? A proper answer if you have to create. You need such tools from texture drawing to futuristic approach to basic shapes in order to make, be it 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, any composition, okay, and any scene creation, or for even storyboarding as well. We need some important small tools, okay. Trust me, if you stick with me for these 35 days, I will make sure that you are gonna crack the UCEED examination very easily, because we are going step by step. With each step, we are teaching you how to add elements in your overall creation. Okay. So, starting with our today's lecture, which is perspective 1 point and 2 point. In the previous lecture, I have discussed everything about our 1 point perspective, where we created a scene as well for 1 point perspective. So if you haven't watched that, please do go and watch it for sure before watching this video, so that you will have a better understanding of 2 point perspective as well. Okay. So before starting the class, we will discuss what are we going to learn today. Okay. So first of all, for our 2 point perspective, we are gonna go through a little bit of history, okay, a brief history. Why are we learning about history in a lot of sessions? Because if you know the actual root where this problem started, for which this solution happened, so that we can use those, like methods in our modern day in order to make these sceneries, in order to make these scenes. Knowing a little history is very important, right? So that you can remember as well during your examination that, okay, if I am stuck at some point, if I'm not being able to create a proper particular scenario, be it a 2 point perspective, be it 3 point, be it multiple point, okay. So that during that time you'll remember, okay, so this originated out of this particular portion, okay. So this is how I'm gonna solve it, okay. I'm gonna give you an example for the same. But for today's next topic, we will go for our modern approach of 2 point perspective. Okay, like after the history, after a brief history, we will go with the modern approach, because we will learn about how it developed over time, how we came up with today's idea of 2 point perspective and the technicalities as well. Okay, how it all started and how we are in today's generation are making all these things very easily. Okay, for the third topic for today, we will go for our again basic shapes in 2 point perspective. Okay, we will try to make basic shapes, be it cube, cuboid, cylinders in 2 point perspective. Okay, because ultimately all of your shapes, all of your buildings, all of your basic scenes are emerged from these basic geometrical shapes only, right? If I am to make a cuboid, okay, somewhat like this, and if I ask you to make, you know, a building out of it, okay, so that will be very, very easy for you, right? So we will learn how to put these basic shapes into your two-point perspective criteria, okay, and we will convert them accordingly into your proper scene, okay. So for the fourth topic for today, we will first go for our scene creation, okay, so that we can learn more about how to convert these shapes into your, whole buildings and street views and different materials such as street lamps, etc. We will learn about it, how to make all these elements in two-point perspective. Okay. Before this, for all our previous sessions, we have learned how to make basic shapes, how to make different 3D elevations of the basic shapes. Okay. But now we are going to learn about how to elevate a proper 2D shape into a 3D format in a two-point perspective point of view, right? So that your whole scene will look very 3D in nature, right? So let's start with our brief history, the first course. Then we will go with all our other topics. And by the end of the class, we will discuss some practice questions as well. Okay. In the meantime, let's go with the history, the first book. Okay. So starting from our first one-point perspective, because it was the first perspective which came into the origination. Okay. So I'll tell you a little story how it all started. So basically there was this architect called Filippo Brunelleschi. Okay. So there was this dome. A church was in making, okay, which was called Santa Maria del Fiore. Okay. So what happened in that church? There was this huge dome. Okay, which is very, very big. It is, if you look at it from like, physically, it is very, very big structure made out of only bricks. Okay, so what was happening? They were not being able to solve the query ki how to close this dome. It was open from the top. Okay, this area was open. No one was being able to close that because the structure was very heavy and it had a lot of weight into it, right? They wanted a little structure on top as well. Okay. So due to that reason, they approached this architect, okay, Italian architect, Filippo Brunelleschi. Okay. So Brunelleschi was a very keen person and he was into mathematics as well. Okay. So he created a formulation so that he can complete that dome. Okay. But this was in an architectural point of view, right? But from this dome ideation only, when he looked up and he saw the whole scenario, he came up with the idea that in our paintings as well, because he was a good artist as well. Okay, in our painting as well, we can use a method where we can increase the surface area in that manner that we will make it 3D. Okay, because before Renaissance, before the 15th century, you must have noticed there are all of the paintings which are very plain in nature. Okay, they look very 2D in nature. Okay, so Brunelleschi was the first person in history who came up with the idea of his own equation. Okay, he experimented a lot. One of his experiments was this. Okay, he took two mirrors, okay, in front of each other, and the smaller mirror had a hole in it. Okay, and he used to look at this mirror, like the face of this mirror, the reflection of the bigger mirror. Okay, again, this is very complicated and we won't be able to understand the very depth of it because, again, in history, a lot of people were experimenting during that era and a lot of people were coming up with different ideas, right? And it worked for them, but it was not necessary that it will work for everyone. It was not universal yet. Okay, so inspired from Brunelleschi, there is this famous artist we all know about, which is Leonardo da Vinci, right? So da Vinci is known for a lot of his experiments in the past, right? So he was the second person, like one of the second person who came up with the idea of perspectograph. Okay, so basically what Brunelleschi did is he made his own version of determining a perspective in a whole scenario where the lines are going, where is it emerging, where is the vanishing point, etc. Right? So Da Vinci also did the same with his own version of a device, which was called perspectograph. Okay, so perspectograph was basically it was a hollow frame. Okay, and he tied a lot of strings in it. Okay, like for example, if we have these rubber bands, okay, and it was a hollow frame, so he just tied a lot of strings in the frame, okay, and he used to look at it from this perspective. Okay, so here was it his face, okay, and this was the hollow frame, and this was the subject. So whenever you look at this frame, through that you will be able to see all the lines, okay, in which you have to draw particularly. Okay, so this was a very modern approach of the whole scenario, of the whole perspective. Okay, and inspired from Da Vinci itself. Even in today's method, we somehow use the same tools and the same guidelines, right? So after Da Vinci, what happened? So, okay, one of the special mentions we have here, which was Mussolini's The Pinnacle. So what happened before Brunelleschi and before Da Vinci, there is this one painting called The Pinnacle, okay, which is one of the examples क्योंकि लोगों ने और explore किया, they all explored a lot in the history that where are the other artists who have done and created perspective in their paintings. Okay, people were very, very keen about it. Okay, so Mussolini's The Pinnacle is one of those paintings where we can see one point perspective very clearly, right? If you look at this painting, observe all these lines, emerging out from one vanishing point. Okay, we will understand terminologies again as well. I have discussed all the terminologies for perspective in our previous session in our day 9. Do check that out, but we will go through the same in our 2-point perspective as well. Okay, because those terminologies are very, very important for you because during your examinations as well, you might get questions from different angle. Like you won't be asked to make 2-point perspective directly. Okay, in most of the questions there will be like a proper guideline if they want to be clear about that. If it is a very complicated question with a lot of prompts, there will be always mentioned that you have to make 1-point, 2-point or 3-point perspective, but in a lot of cases it is not mentioned as well. Okay, so it will be in a very different language, which will be your horizon point is up and down, your vision point is from 2 angles. Okay, your vanishing point basically is on 2 angles. Where is your orthogonal lines happening? Okay, so for that matter we will go through that again, and we will use the same terminology in our whole session so that you can also get a gist of those terminologies. Okay, so coming back to our history, so it was seen that the Pinnacle was a painting which was to be seen before the 1500s, before the origination of Brunelleschi or Da Vinci. This was one of the painting by Mussolini who created perspective in his own manner, but he did not had any method for it, like a particular equation for it. He did not had that. Okay, so later on again, like Da Vinci discovered more of the perspective and he shared the idea with the whole world as well. Okay, inspired from all our previous artists, Raphael started using perspective in the first book. Okay, Raphael was a very renowned artist in our 1500s. Okay, and he was also one of the people who created such great artworks. And what happened? Raphael started his own school called the School of Athens, okay, in the era 1510. Okay, so what happened? Raphael understood the whole concept of perspective. He started using it in his own artworks, and he started teaching it as well, okay, to his students. Whereas all of this was happening for 1-point perspective. Okay, so there was a concept of having 2 vanishing points as well during this era, but again 2 vanishing points get a little confusing for a lot of people. Okay, so people did not prefer that in a wider aspect. until our era of 1500s. Okay, so like during your whole 1500s, artists focused on our 1 point perspective. Okay, and during our 1600s, our 2 point perspective started emerging. Okay, so one of those example is from for 2 point perspective. This is the first modern example of 2 point perspective, which was created by Perle. Okay, he was experimenting the two vanishing point concept because he thought about it. If there can be 1 point of perspective, there should be 2 point as well. Okay, and let's explore that factor as well. Okay, so this was one of the first example, okay, of the sketches he made in order to explore the 2 point perspective. Okay, so let's go through with the basic terminology I just discussed. Okay, till point. This was for 1 point perspective. I am going through with this again so that we will be able to understand it perfectly. So again, there are three major points. Okay, first one is your vanishing point. Okay, vanishing point is the most important element in our perspective sketches. Okay, because vanishing point is a point where all of your scene is emerging and vanishing at this one particular point. If you go out and stand by the end of a street, okay, you will be observe how all the buildings are going and emerging at this one particular point and it's vanishing, right? Because of our vision, we can't see beyond our vanishing point, right? So that's why in order to copy that in our 2D format, in a 2D plane, we have created this term called vanishing point. Okay, so in 1 point perspective, of course, we have one vanishing point. So there is this one dot. Okay, so I'm just discussing the basic terminology right now. After that, we have orthogonal lines. So these lines are our guidelines. Okay. For example, how Da Vinci used, different strings. So basically, if we are to place these strings from this 1 point, emerging from 1 point, we will call them what? Our orthogonal lines. Okay, these lines going up. So orthogonal lines help us to determine our exact area where we are gonna draw, right? All of our upper and bottom portions of a 3D figure we determine from orthogonal lines. Okay. Number three is the horizon. Horizon is a point where it is set up how and where your vision is happening. Okay. For example, your point of view overall. Like you'll get questions of having bird view, okay, your normal view, okay, and your down view as well. We have discussed about three views as well. Okay, I will write it down again. So there are basically three views, okay, which are your number one, top view, okay, number two, middle view, and number three, down view or bottom view. We call it with a lot of names. Okay, you won't get a exact prompt of you have to make a top view or down view or middle view or something. You'll get prompts like, bird view. Okay, for example, you're a bird flying over a fest, okay, a Dashera or Navratri fest, okay, and looking down. So you have to make it in 1 point perspective or something like that. Okay, so that kind of question will arrive in your UCEED examination. Okay, so whenever there is this top view, whenever you are looking from top to downwards, you will see how your horizon point is getting lower, right? If you look at anything from a top view, it will be in the bottom, right? So because your eye, your vision is on top, right? So always the horizon will be in like below your middle view, below in your whole frame, it will be in the lower portion. Okay. For the middle view, we call it normal view also. Okay, or your human eye view. as well. Okay. Again, a lot of names for it, a lot of prompts for it. You have to determine what view are they talking about, what view are they asking you to draw. Okay, these are the two things you have to keep in mind during your examinations. Okay, and where your horizon line should be. Okay, so in order to determine different views, determine different points, we adjust our horizon line accordingly. Okay, and our vanishing points accordingly. Although vanishing points will be at still at a equal parts, okay, depending on our situation, your horizon will change accordingly. Okay, again, I've explained this in our last video very much in depth. Please check that out. But I'm just going through with it again so that we can understand it in a 2-point perspective as well. Okay, perspective might be a little tricky, but this is one of the major parts in your examination, in your UCEED examination. You will be evaluated on the basis of your perspective a lot. Okay, why? Because perspective being one of the topics of composition. Okay, wherever you have to create a scene, wherever you have to create a whole scenario, you have to use some kind of guideline, some kind of perspective, right? Later in our session, we will understand more about our composition as well, right? Where we are to place different objects in a frame. But even for composition, perspective is a very major point. Okay, this is a very major tool. So if you learn about this during our 3 sessions of perspective, 3 days of perspective, just pause the video, look at it again, go through with the terminology, try it by yourself. Okay, it will be very, very easier for you. Okay, if you dedicatedly look at all these materials with me. Okay, other than that, we have our workbook as well, because again, right now we can just discuss about all the point of views or all the perspectives, but ultimately the type of questions you are gonna get, you have to look through that. Okay, you can always search it. Other than that, in our app, in our KP exam prep application, you will get different materials as well, different free materials as well. So what's gonna happen, whatever I am gonna make in class, whatever our other faculty is gonna teach in class, by the end of it, whatever I'm gonna sketch, we're gonna scan it and add it to a free material section. Okay, so this is the layout of our app. Do check it out. Okay, for the free material as well. Okay, in our store section. Okay, so for that matter, we have our foundation program, common foundation program, advanced foundation program, workbook as well for part B, these 3 workbooks, where we have added all the questions in a twisted manner, starting from a very basic to advanced, right? Like all these 3 workbooks will help you a lot in order to solve the question, in order to look at the question in a different perspective, right? You will be able to determine what question is lying under what category. Okay. Other than that, for part A, we also have these 4 workbooks as well. Okay, do check that out. It is all available in our app. Okay, it will be very helpful for you. The third point we have is your test series as well. Okay, see, uh, practicing on your own is great, right? Ultimately, that's the first step you have to take. But when you reach a level where you are equipped with, be it perspective, be it human figures, be it animal anatomy, okay, be it character design, you have to test yourself, right? Because we have a time limit here. Okay, I am gonna teach you how to manage your time as well. Okay, after all of our sessions, I am gonna teach you how to give what time to this particular sketch along with some extra tips as well. Okay, but before that, we have to understand all of our basic tools for these 35 sessions, where we are gonna be very, very equipped and confident about our basic line drawing, sketching, right? So that we can make perfect, proper sketches without any hesitation, without wasting any time during the examination. Okay. So let's make this one in a 2-point perspective as well. Okay, which is your view. Okay. So if we are to make it in three views. Okay, so the first one will be for, we are talking about 2-point perspective. Here we have only one vanishing point. Here we will have two vanishing points. Okay, so just going vaguely about it. Again, I have explained about views much more in detail in our previous video. So you can, if you don't understand the terminology, if you want to go much more in depth about it, please do check out that video. Okay. In this video, I'm just going through all of this. So again, let's make our vision points. Okay. So number one हमारा क्या है? Vision point. Okay. So for that, we will just add two vision points here. Okay. So the first one is your top view, right? For that, again, we will follow the same rule. The horizon line will be lower bottom. Okay. So for that manner, we will have 2 points, vanishing points here. Again, the vanishing points can be anywhere in the page, anywhere in the box. Okay. It can be here as well. It can be here as well. Okay. It depends on your view. But your horizon will lie the bottom only. Okay, we will explain about how to decide and go with the horizon entirely in our practice session. But for now, let's go with this. Okay, so if you are looking from the top manner, it won't be bilkul exact here, right? We will be carrying the vision points and orthogonal lines from a little top view as well. It will go somewhat like this, right? It can also go somewhat like this as well. Okay, for different scenarios again. Okay, so this is your top view, or again, bird view, right? Then we have our middle view. Okay, again, we now call it normal view, okay, or human view, etc. Okay, so for the same, our horizon will lie in the middle. Okay, your 2 points will be almost in the middle. Okay, and your 2 points will look somewhat like this. Your orthogonal lines will look like this. Okay, the term of orthogonal lines still we don't use that much, but for your better understanding, you can always use the terminology so that you can understand it better. Okay, so for this, we have your vision points here as well. Okay, because this is again a middle way. For the third one, we have our down or bottom view, right? Which we also call worm view, your ant view. Okay, and we will go through some questions which come in a twisted manner. Okay, in this as well. Okay, so for this, whenever someone or something is looking from downwards to upwards, the horizon point will rise on top. Okay, so for the same, we will place the horizon line on the top, and your vision point for 2-point perspective will lie from the bottom to upward. Just like it happened in the first view, from the top to bottom, it will go opposite for the third portion. So your orthogonal lines will look like this. Okay. And your product placement can be here as well. Your building placement can be here as well. Okay, it can go in so many ways according to your questions. Okay, but this is your basic skeleton, and we have to remember this in order to create a whole scenario. Okay, I will be solving a question as well, or I'll be just showing you a scene as well according to our time. Okay, and we will continue that in our next session. Okay, where we have 2-point and 3-point perspective. Okay, so in the last session we have discussed about this abandoned railway track, right? Where we added some texture to it, right? So that we can just understand 1-point perspective in a wider aspect. Okay, I will be showing you this one example before starting with your 2-point perspective in a wider aspect, so that we can just end our 1-point perspective here, okay, and we can differentiate it in different manners. Okay, so this is a question which came in a previous examination. It more it judges you on the basis of your observational skill as well. Okay, so the question was to create a marketplace scenario in 1-point perspective, okay, and from a very small town, okay, from a small town scenario, okay. So this is how you are gonna solve it according to your size of the sheet, right? But this is a personal suggestion. Always use the printing paper which we use for printing or printers in order to practice as well, because this is the paper, this is the GSM quality you're gonna get in the examination as well. Okay, so you will be more equipped to such quality because our drawing paper have higher GSM. Okay, you might get very comfortable with that, and during your examination you might be able to rule the paper as well. Okay, so do the final practice here as well. Okay, in the printing paper, where you'll be very equipped and you'll be understanding about the whole GSM quality as well. Okay, so this was a marketplace. So if you notice, we have created a lot of stores, a lot of elements to it. Okay, how we created the crowd area, how we created different elements like the tangled wire, the cable wire you see everywhere literally in our Indian streets, right? And the street lamps, okay, and like all the banners or the downward stationery, right? So with the given timeline, it's not necessary to add a lot of faces, etc. What is necessary to add more elements and personalized elements to it. Okay, you have to show the examiner that you are equipped and you are a very observant person. Okay, so like how we created small tiny banners, very typical ones like print, color in like different languages as well, Hindi, English as well. So, and for the superstore as well, right? And like shops are on below and houses still are on top, right? So we have created such a situation here. Okay, so these are the very small pointers you have to add, and if you look at it again, this goes with one single vanishing point, which is here. Okay, like every scene, everything, all the buildings, all the human beings, all the wires are emerging on this one particular vanishing point, right? So this is a perfect example of 1-point perspective, and how are you gonna approach it during your examination. Okay, so this is an overview where in the same time you might be asked to add more elements to it, right? For this question, the element was to add a cow in it, okay, to add maybe a medical store to it or a fashion store to it. Okay, such prompts you will get. Okay, so you just have to mark that down, and you have to make it accordingly. Okay, we will go with the brainstorming session of how to determine and shortlist the pointers in a question. Okay, in our different sessions, in our practice sessions as well, in paper solving session as well. But right now, all I want you to look at is how I have approached the whole perspective point of view. Okay, if you are asked that you have to make something in 1-point or 2-point perspective, you have to make sure of using all these guidelines I'm talking about in order to score good marks. Okay, otherwise your marks will be deducted one way or the other. All your overall image won't look exactly correct. Okay, some or the other technicalities will happen and it will look a little odd. Okay, so let's go to 2-point perspective. Okay, from here, and after learning all the perspectives, we will be doing different questions on the basis of perspective only in our perspective practice session. Okay, so let's start with the terminology of 2-point perspective. So before that, just like from 1-point perspective, we have made a tool. Again, check that out in our previous video. we will be making a tool or a equipment for ourselves for a better understanding when you don't actually have made any, 2-point perspective earlier, right? So we will be making a tool for that, a very basic tool for that, for which you just need a big rubber band. Okay, you can get it from any stationery shops as well, or your local sweet shops as well. The wider the bigger rubber band. Okay, or if you don't have that, you can use a stretchable string or any elastic as well. Okay, so here I am using this rubber band. For 1-point perspective, we have had to use the 2 rubber bands, right? For this one, we will just be using this 1 rubber band. Okay, from any point of view, vertically or horizontally, you can just place this rubber band right here. Okay, I am taking the paper like this so that we can make a little box for 2-point perspective, right? It's just this, right? So what's happening? We have 2 vanishing points here, right? How? From here and here. For 1-point perspective, we have used an interlooped rubber band where if we were placing it on the sheet on our board, it was giving this figure, right? And it was here the 1 point, right? Here in your 2-point, we have 2 vanishing points, right? That's why we are using this 1 rubber band and depicting 2 vanishing points from each the areas. Okay, so we will mark it like this. Okay, that we have 2 vanishing points from here. Okay, and we will just create horizon the first row. Okay, somewhat like this. And what we'll do is your third activity, which is your basic shape. Okay, so for basic shape, I will give you a 1 reference I have. Okay, for cube and cuboid, we will be adding more and more shapes into it for sure. So again, this was exercise of 1-point perspective. Similarly, we will do this for 2-point as well. Okay. So again, for 2 points, we will be going for again 2 vanishing points. Okay, and just like how it is in this image, we will be using our tool, a little tiny tool for the same. Okay. So first of all, we will determine your one suggestion, one pointer, major pointer. Whenever you are using a reference image for your drawing, okay, if you feel like your sketch is different from the reference, do check your technicalities. It's not necessary that the reference image will look exactly like your artwork, exactly like your terminology, because it all matters, right? Because see how here the 2-point perspective have only this much space. In this plane we have a whole page, right? So of course this differs, right? It matters in both the scenarios, right? So for that manner, when I have this, I'm just taking a reference from it. I'm not copying it entirely. Okay, it's always good to use a reference so that you can challenge yourself, you can judge yourself on the basis of that, but do not go entirely about your reference image. Okay, so after that, for this method, you can use either your normally your finger as well, but I personally like to use this paper clip. Okay, I just put it first. Okay, you can use a safety pin as well. You can use like literally anything which will attach to your rubber band like this. Okay, so starting from your orthogonal line, making those. Okay, just pushing it upwards. Okay, and adding the lines like this and like this. Right? A very tiny bit snippet of it will make sure. Okay. And for bottom one, we know we can go simply like this. These are just for your guidelines. So again, the because of the rubber band, it will be very wibbly wobbly in general. Do make it very light. Okay, and after checking your guideline for it, like overall guideline for your part using your rubber band method, what you can do is just to fill it up Okay, right? Right. Whenever you are using this tool, always remember tool won't um, won't be wrong. Okay, even if you feel, because in perspective, a lot of people do face this challenge that they don't particularly feel like it's going in the right direction and they keep on erasing it and doing it again and again. See, I don't suggest to use the same method in your examination. Okay, don't rely on it completely, but yeah, this is for more of your practice issue. Okay, so okay, after this, we will just be making your lines from it. Okay, so for the bottom as well, where we can see, for example, this is very similar to our image. Of course, shifted towards the left side more, but it's kind of similar, right? That we have to make these three faces particularly in order to make this 3D shape, right? So for that manner, what we'll do is to make the same thing like this. So if you are being confused how to make the bottom portion, I am explaining it right here. Okay, just take your pin. Okay, just place it on the point where you need to get the base done. Okay, so like if I need to get the guideline for this line here, right? Because this will also emerge from the same vanishing point, no? So I will be doing just placing it here, okay, and taking a simple guideline from it, somewhat like this. Again, with the rubber band, you won't get straight line. Just take a little snippet out of it. Okay, we'll do the same thing with the other side. Okay, put the paper clip on the corner of your figure. Okay, and just cross it out. Right. So this is your vague guideline. You just complete this like this. Okay. And here you'll get your first figure of 2-point perspective. Okay. Now it's up to you. You can convert this particular figure into anything, right? A hut, a building, or even a bus stop you could make, right? In a very wider perspective, like a very tiny bus stop in a scenario, right? So, and again, as I've discussed in each and every session in the past, that whenever you are making something solid or in a 3D format, do try to, shadow it out a little, from a texture drawing and xylography lessons, because eventually this is a major point of our time management. Okay, whenever you practice in every session, every image or every figure, be it human, be it animal, be it your basic shapes, be it your geometric shapes, always shade it out using your hatching technique or your cross hatching technique, somewhat like that, okay, so that you can have a basic understanding of, a basic habit of hatching or, basically adding shadows to your whole figure, okay. You can just take a wide pencil, at least 2B or more than that, and just give it a little effect. Okay? Like very tiny fine line throughout the figure. Okay, because this is meant to be the bottom, right? And I would like to add more shadows here as well. Okay, this might look like why am I doing this in a practice session kind of situation, but do make this. Okay, you will be able to understand where you stand in shadings as well. For practicing xylography in the same session, because of course, all as I've discussed in the first session, we are going to use all of these tools uh, in your answers, in order to make this perfect answer. Okay. So all of these tools are gonna be combined by the end of these sessions, and you're gonna be able to make the answers very perfectly accordingly. Okay. So similarly, what we are doing is to add each and every step. Okay. If in this only, in your 2 point perspective only, you want to practice, stylography, you can go for one line source from one portion, right? You can, change the shadow or the shading accordingly. Okay, you can add the shadow accordingly if you feel like that. And in the same session, in the same practice session, if you feel like adding, more texture towards it, in order to practice your texture drawing, do make sure of that. I have made like 4 or 5 figures here, so I want like wooden texture in one, I want iron texture in one, so why not? Okay, it's like a practice for the whole thing. Okay, so if we are combining the practice sessions, if we are even practicing 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, whatever it is, if we are making a basic shape, if we are shading it out, and if we are adding more texture to it, it will be our practice of combining all the tools we are learning today. Okay, this is your major portion. This is your major point where you're gonna be very comfortable in solving these questions in a particular time level, because you'll be able to add all of your tools in one go. Okay, I'm adding 3 sessions in this one figure. Okay, I'm adding these 3 tools in this one figure within 2 minutes of time. Okay, if you think about it, making shapes, then shading it out, then adding texture, it will be a very lengthy process. So again, my personal suggestion, always make sure that you are following the previous sessions as well in this one. Okay, adding more shadows and textures as well in all of your figures, adding more details as well, so that you will be very habitual of doing that. Okay, so that you won't be very caught up in the only basic drawing, that you won't be able to shade it out in the particular time limit, right? So moving forward with a different next shape, right? So again, if I have determined the source of light from here, you can use the same tool for your shadow making as well. But again, let's not do that here. We will do it in your scene creation, right? So let's make another shape from different angle. Okay. So if our shape is to be placed here, okay. So first of all, the basic lining you will determine. Okay, if your always remember, if your rubber band or your string is getting up and down, or is moving from your this horizon line, you determine the first go. Always place it correctly, otherwise you won't be able to get the perfect perspective shape you wanted. Okay, if you are using this tool for the practice session, always make sure of that. So again, if I want to make it on the left corner, I'm pulling the string down. Okay, making the guideline and just marking it out, right? And again, see how my rubber band just got down. So you can place a pin over here as well, or with a tape or something, so that it won't move. This is the basic lining. Okay, and for the top as well, let's make this figure in the first row. Okay, I want my figure to lie from here till here. Okay, I'm using this one reference, but more on the left side. Okay, so all the corners will be same, right? Like in the same direction, in a vertical line, right? The same tool. And as I've discussed in this one, take the corner, okay, of any figure. If I anticipated it to be here, take the corner and add the guideline. Okay, like this. Okay, so again, this is very vague, and I'm gonna rectify that using a proper line. And before starting your perspective, always do the first exercise we discussed, okay, which was your line quality testing. If you feel like you're not being able to make a proper straight line, okay, if you face that issue, always take any rough paper or any corner or back side of the paper, okay, and try to do the same exercise we have done earlier, okay, and make like very straight lines, figures in the whole paper, okay, so that your hand will be set accordingly, right? Because during a perspective, if you're not using this tool, if you're not using any major thing in the examination, of course, you'll be facing many more difficulties, okay. This tool is only for the convenience so that we can understand the perspective, but you can't use it in the examination. There might be some chances that you might be able to use that, but don't take that risk, okay? Because we have to learn how to make it without using a tool. Because somewhat tool is a very perfect thing to use during an examination, but it's very time taking as well, right? That we have to make and determine each and everything. It is just to get you an idea of the whole scenario, okay? So use it only for your practice session, okay? So after that, joining these two lines, okay? And then we have our third line, okay? So again, putting it on the corner, exact corner, determining your line, okay? Like putting it in this corner and determining our line, which goes somewhat like this, right? So it will go like this, okay? And determining the corner from here, it will go somewhat like this, right? Putting it here and adding a line. Okay. Now that we have a big figure, we will just join the lines and our figure is good. Okay, in a 2-point perspective. So we are remembering about all the history and historical tools as well, so that if you ever get stuck in a very crucial timing about any form of perspective or any line, you can always just close your eyes and imagine what the tool was, what this tool was, how you practiced it, okay, and you can determine the lines and lining towards it, okay. The other method, of course, other than the tool, if we talk about, we will go for the basic line, right? Where we don't have a tool, we will use your orthogonal lines directly on the paper. Okay, that will be your next step. You can practice the 2-point perspective using your, you know, like the tool at least for maybe 5-6 shapes, at least 5-6 shapes according to your comfortability, and later on you can use it for this one scene creation as well if you feel like it, okay. If you feel like knowing the basic shaping of the whole scene, you can just use this geometrical shapes, and later on you can switch it to more detailed work of 2-point perspective. But other than that, we will be doing your next step of the 2-point perspective, which is not using our tool, stepping out of our comfort zone, right? And going for the orthogonal line. Okay. So, again, for this method, you can try using a scale as well. Okay, there is no problem, there is no issue in using a scale. You can always carry a scale if you are having any issues of particularly not being able to make the straight lines. But again, always try to give yourself that line quality, because it's not about this one straight line in general, it's about in general of all the figures and their straight lines, right? And you can't use scale in all the tiny bits of figures, okay? So it's okay to use the scale for your orthogonal lines, okay, for these lines, but don't use it on a regular basis. Try to make straight lines with your practice work, okay? So let's take an example of your 2-point perspective, okay, which will be this. I will be showing you how to move this, okay, once, and we will be making some other scene as well, so that we can just determine the overall view of it. Okay, so what's happening here? We have 2 vanishing points. So number 1, we will determine your horizon. Okay, this one straight line in the middle or anywhere you want exactly, if there was a box. Okay, we will determine by using two vanishing points like this. Okay. Then we will go for your random orthogonal lines. Okay. Just make sure it goes straight, won't go wibbly wobbly in every direction. Okay. This one line emerging from here should be straight. Okay. It shouldn't bend or anything. Okay. Otherwise, you can make it in every direction. That's up to you. That's your choice. Okay. You will be making because a lot of orthogonal lines according to your requirements in the figure, right? Even for the human figure, we need orthogonal lines. Okay. So, this is your overall understanding. Okay. How to make the lines in general. Okay. And if we are to make this room, what we'll do, we have to determine this one common line in between, right? So that we can have this little tiny portion of the room. Okay. So I want this to be a little bigger. Again, taking the reference, but only as a reference with. You don't have to copy it. Okay, judge yourself, give yourself more chance to explore. So if you see this figure, try to change it a little bit. In the first go, just change it a little bit, not entirely, but a little bit. If it's very small, try to make it a little larger. If it's very large, try to make it a little smaller, accordingly, according to you. So similarly, what we'll do is to add. See, again, orthogonal lines goes a long way, of different directions. Okay, and I am making it a little larger, right? So this line was going here. Okay, so this is my main line here, placing it here. Okay, and similarly, our other lines will go like this only, right? Again, this was emerging from here itself. Okay, so if you judge it like that, it will go like that. Okay? And same goes for here. Right? So this is your overall view of your particular area or room or a hall, or you can get questions of making a gallery as well, your bus stops as well. Again, very large number of things you can do with this one tiny figure only. Okay. So we have determined these lines. And always try to remove all your unnecessary orthogonal lines because you are going to use the lines again and again. And one thing I always repeat in all the sessions, that always use a very tiny thin pencil, okay, which is like 0.5 in nature. Use it with a distance whenever you have to make a very light and normal line, okay, so it won't damage your paper underneath, it won't give any extra impressions on it, right? Like if you can see. So always hold your pencil after your four fingers gap from the nib, okay, like this. If you have to make a very tiny thin line, very erasable line, okay. Or the next go, we will go for the windows, okay. So for that also we will be using the same perspective lines. Okay, if my window is to, so this is your overall room. Okay, this is your only orthogonal line. You can erase it as well, but I am leaving it right now because I'll be needing it in the windows. Okay, so going with the same concept that my window will be somewhat here. Okay. And so if my window is to be placed here, my lines will come from here, from the opposite vision point. So for the same, what I am doing is to have two lines, okay, two orthogonal guidelines basically, one here and one to be placed somewhat here so that I can make this big of a window. Okay, let's not go for the upper top, round figure. Okay, let's go for a different figure, right? So you can do one thing, you can take a basic shaping of the same. Okay, if I don't want to go very beyond, if I want to make any shape, okay, let's go with two straight lines. Even if I want to go for the same shape, no, I will just carve it out from this basic shape. Okay, don't go for it bilkul directly. Use your bilkul geometrical shape starting from it, and then convert it in and carve it into your own shape. Okay, I am using this line, like this shape of window. Okay, somewhat like this. I Let's make the shadow itself. Okay, so that for the depth effect, I'm making it simultaneously so that we can just complete the windows at least for today's session. Okay, so I will be placing this one window here. So if you look at it, their room is smaller from a back view. My room is bigger because my line is this big. Okay, so I'm be placing only this one window here. If I place another window here, a line will, barge in between, and I won't be able to do much about it. Right? I don't want that. Right? So I will be switching to the different direction where I am making the door. Okay, so for the door, we will do the opposite orthogonal line again, right? And it will lie till bottom of the floor, right? And we're making it from this point of view. Okay, again making the same line from the bottom to the top. Okay, and again wherever your direction is, the 3D figure will be on the opposite side as we have discussed again in our previous session. So I'm going to give the same shaping to the door as well. Somewhat like this. Again, using the reference but not copying it entirely. Okay, just challenge yourself with the little practice sessions as well. Okay, or whenever you feel the chance of erasing any extra pointers, any extra lines, you can do that, because again you can make it again and again, and you have to make it again and again. Okay, you will be very confused with very millions of lines, so just go with very minimal approach. Okay, so here as well, if we are to make a little depth effect into it, we're making this. Okay, you can convert this scene into any museum as well, where there's so much to be at display or something like that, right? So it's not necessary that you be using different, different base figures for different, platforms or different scenes, right? You can use a single base figure, because ultimately all our vision points are similar, right? Matlab, like 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective is very similar in nature for all the scenes of scenario, be it a bus stop, be it museum, be it a gallery, etc., right? But all we have to do is to change the basic layouting and to add more shades and shadow towards it, so that we can put it in a way of our answer, right? Like in what manner, in what way do I want to depict my answer? I'll just change the little pointers about it, right? I'll add more personality to my whole sketch. Okay. So this is your door figure, right? So Again, you can add more depth into it if you feel like. Okay, you can add different scenarios to it. You can add more windows, more shadows, more people, anything you want in the same frame. Okay, in the same frame, set of frames. At the same time, you can erase all the rest leftover parts. Okay, if I feel like my view is very in a closer manner and I do not want to add more elements like windows and doors to it, just like this. Okay, so you can start from this, start from a basic uh, point of view. Okay, and add more depth towards it. Okay, if you want to add more windows and etc to it, it's up to you. You can make your own versions. You can make, of course, a lot of different elements and personality to it. Okay, but right now, if I feel like my scenario is much more closer, I do not want to add more elements towards it. Okay, so this is your basic layouting of a 2-point closer view. It goes somewhat like this. Okay, and again, I can always use my thumb if I don't want to shade a lot. I have shown different shading techniques as well. You can use it for your own, you know, comfort and ease, whatever you feel and wish to use in a particular manner. If you want to create any texture towards it, okay, it's always very, very very easy to adjust. Okay, so again, adding more depth to it. Okay, I can add like a lot of things like little, paintings in it, somewhat like this. Okay, and a lot of frames as well. I can place human figures here as well. Okay, you can do anything in this figure you want to. Okay, uh, whenever we need to do like different figures in different manners, different scenario, we'll just go with different frame of line. For example, I wanted to make a closed room scenario. Okay, very close up view. So I use this line. If you want to make a view which is very far away or something like that, what you'll do is to reduce this line only. Okay, I'll give you a little example. If I had a horizon line here, two vision points here, if I have to make a room which is much more wider than our previous sketch, then I'll do is to just add, the lines very closer to each other, right? I'll just make this one tiny baseline, okay, like having this point of view, POV, okay, somewhat like this, okay, and then increasing our room in this manner, right, like this, right? Okay, so basically what's happening, this, 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 and this. So our room size, room area automatically increased, okay, with the thinning of that line, okay, shortening that line. What happens? Your area or your overall room area increases whenever you put this line smaller and increase this line wider. Okay. If you notice this scenario, what we have, this line is so big that our room is very closer to our vision point, right? So again, do try to practice such very simple small figures in the first four. Do not jump for a lot of elements. Do not jump for a lot of, misunderstandings right away, because much more figures, you'll be very confused how to put it in 2-point perspective. Okay, try out with very basic geometrical shapes and figures so that you will be able to understand it more. And once you get a grip with that, you'll be very easily be able to make such figures, and we will be doing more of this. Okay, do try this exercise for sure, making basic shapes and then converting it into rooms or different bus stops, etc. Okay, so let's discuss one more scene in our next class, where we will learn more about 2-point perspective, where we will be finishing our 2-point perspective with a proper scene and scenery. Okay, and then we will jump to our 3-point perspective, where we will be having our 3 visual points. Okay, so that's it for today's class. Thank you for watching, and do check out our next video for 3-point perspective. Okay.